Absolutely. Well, welcome again to our webinar this morning. Bob and I are so happy to be here and to share the words sometimes of Napoleon Hill and add our 2 cents. Sometimes it's a penny, sometimes it's a nickel, right, Bob?
That's exactly right. And when you read Napoleon Hill, you always have to factor in how old this book is. Some of, as Judy and I were going through this chapter 7, there's this recognition that a whole lot of the information that he has in this particular chapter is predicated on what they were going through just coming out of the Great Depression. And he talks about the Depression and what that did to the markets and that kind of a thing. And, how to create a resume, if you will. They didn't call it that back then. But so a lot of the information, although it's good, solid, and the principles are correct and really rock solid, they kind of, some of them, they just didn't apply to what we were trying to teach today. Good stuff, but we have to sort of, as Jody and I read this, we have to kind of wrap our head around it and then make it apply to what we're doing today. But really, I guess the bottom line about organized planning is creating a desire and then turning that desire into action. And that's, I think, what our focus is going to be today, is that, anything in this life, everything in this life that we create, it has to begin with some form of a desire. Isn't that right, Judy?
That is so much. And we talk a lot about what is our why. And really, that's what it comes down to for the beginning. But the process to get to where you want to go, you do have to have a vision. Detailed plans sometimes don't work the way we want them to. I would say probably 99.5% of the time, our detailed plans don't come to fruition, but you need them so you know where you're going and you can make adjustments.
It's exactly right. And as I was studying through this, and I sent some of my notes to Judy as well, but one of the first thoughts that came to my mind was Stephen Covey when he talks about begin with the end in mind. And that's what that planning is all about. You have to know why you're doing the things you're doing. You can kind of figure out how and what and how after that. You do have to begin, though, with, what is the baseline motivation for the things that you're doing. So you really need to begin with the end in mind. And Napoleon Hill, the end in mind with Napoleon Hill is to get rich. I mean, that's what he talks about. That's his whole focus, is getting rich. Maybe not so much for the rest of us, although it would be nice. But I think more than anything else is that we hope that as we go through this life, we learn, we grow, we become stronger, better people, more capable people. So all of these principles and teachings apply not only to getting rich, but to just getting through life as better people, maybe more fulfilled, maybe better parents or friends or whatever. So that's kind of where we're at with regard to Napoleon Hill. And I've mentioned before that, at least for me, getting rich has never been in my mindset. It just isn't. I've always been a little bit more concerned about where I lived in the lifestyle that I was living, a simple lifestyle, versus being rich. So it's just different for all of us. And I think, Judy, you basically feel the same way.
Yes, I think about getting rich as, being rich in life, being rich in relationships, and how I spend my day. And, the end part is that it does take some money to do that. So, money does play a part, but it shouldn't be the focus. I always go back to the lesson about the Henry Ford teaching in a college, and he had a pair of spectacles, and he had the dollar bills, the silver dollars in place of the glass. And he asked a student to come up in front and said, could you put these spectacles on? And so the student did, and the Henry Ford said, now tell me what you see. And the response was, I can't see anything. The money is in the way. And that's been such a great lesson for me to not focus on the dollars, but focus on the lifestyle and what it's going to be, how I'm going to grow personally and professionally, um, rather than looking at those two silver dollars in the spectacles.
Yeah, I've never heard that story before. That's awesome. And it's a good thing to keep in mind. Now, we all recognize too that in order to be successful, we have to, we have to increase the amount of cash flow and residual income that we have. And that's why we're involved with Synergy Worldwide. We have the best products you can get. I mean, there's just no question about the value of the products. But in the process of that, we need to be able to make some money as well. And sometimes the goal is just simply to make enough money to pay for our products, which is in and of itself a noble and worthwhile desire and goal. But also we can make that, David, we can make that car payment for the Mustang or something along those lines where it goes way beyond just getting by for the month or sharing a little bit of a product, but we can make some money in the process. And the compensation plan is organized so that we can do that. And it's a great comp plan, I think. And as we got started, at least with this chapter in Napoleon Hill's book, one of the first things that he talks about is to create a mastermind group. I always used to say, abuse your upline. And the thought, when I would say that, the thought that I had in mind by saying that is that you can use your upline initially to create this group of individuals to work with, this mastermind group. One of the cool things about being in this particular industry that we're in is that we really can pretty much choose who you want to have on our team. We don't have to just sponsor just anybody. We can sponsor those individuals that we want to work with. And I think that's a real advantage. Now, finding those individuals can be something of a challenge anymore. It seemed like a few years ago, it was a lot easier to find people who wanted to become distributors than it is today. But Judy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. And I love what you say about abusing your upline, because we don't come into any business knowing all of the products and all of the ways to do business. And all about self-improvement and our uplines and even our sidelines and our cross lines, everyone can really help. I think Dane has a very unique team in that many of us are not upline and downline of each other, but we help to support each other anyway. And that's one of the great things that I really like about Synergy is that the help that we offer each other. I mean, I call David Munoz all the time, and he's really not connected to me in the organizational chart. We happen to live near one another and like to help one another. So really being able to create what Napoleon Hill calls a mastermind group really is very, very important, because this business, you can be alone, and it's not about being alone. It's about getting support from other people.
It is. And, one of the things that we've discovered through the years, as we've been involved with Synergy, is that there are certain groups or organizations where that doesn't really happen. And so many people have been drawn to Dan Hammer through the years because Dan has created all of these great resources that no one else has. And he's been very free with them, very inclusive, letting people use the things that he's created, that rising tide lifts all ships concept. But he's been really, really kind to do that. And so there are people all across the world, literally, who go to oursynergyfamily.com to get information. It's been it's refreshing to know that we work in a company or an organization where people are willing to help themselves. I got a text message last night from Rudy Pedrosa. He said he was just flying back into the States and wanted to know if he could get on our call on Monday. Well, we're not in Rudy's downline or involved with Rudy or Paul, But there's two guys who have been successful in this particular industry and with Synergy Worldwide, more than willing to reach out, take time out of their schedules to to inspire and to help the rest of us. So it's just great stuff, and I love it. And I think one of the things that we need to be mindful of, and I don't mean to take over the call here, Judy, but when we organize ourselves, when we start creating our own team, there are things that we need to be mindful of. What do we bring to the table, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to sponsor these individuals, and we're going to work together as a team. But you need to be clear on what it is that you're bringing to the table. Then you need to look at the people who are coming into your organization. What do they bring in? And not take advantage, but take advantage of the various ideas and thoughts, etc. And then being consistent within that group. Using, I don't know, Zoom calls or conference calls or whatever, but finding a harmony or just a team mindset with your group or the people that you're working with really brings a lot of energy into your organization.
That's so true, Bob. And we all actually have a responsibility as a team member to our customers, to our fellow consultants, because this product changes the lives of people. And things happen when people are on Pro-Arginine Plus and Slim Smart and the Biome Shake. Things happen to their lives for the better. And so to have that responsibility to be able to change the lives of our customers and the lives of our fellow team members is so awesome. But it does make a difference, and it's just important to all of us to remember that.
It is. There's a quote from the Bible that says, "My house is a house of order." And I think of that often, and with regard to our own personal lives, how when we are organized and moving forward in an organized manner, things go much more smoothly and people can be blessed. But when it's chaotic, it just doesn't work. No team works well in chaos. Everybody needs to learn to work together. So that's the thing that we're looking at today, is as we kind of organize ourselves and get our plans organized and pull our teams together and work with one another. Those are all of the things that we want to keep in mind. What we're doing is important. And that's really, really important to remember, that what we're looking at, what we're trying to achieve has value to it. It's important. We want to make sure that our plans are good, that we realize that there's there's an advantage in using the experience and the education and I think Napoleon Hill refers to the native ability of people and their imaginations to make our team successful. And I love that idea of native abilities. It's a term that I'd never used before. I don't think I've ever even seen it before. But there are just so many people that come into our world that have these inherent native abilities to do things and move things forward. It's not predicated upon education. It's just inherent in people's personalities, if you will. And so I think that's cool. And we want to watch for that as we put our teams together. Judy?
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes, we are surprised as we learn about people and work with people on what their native abilities are. You think it's one thing, and then there's so much other things that come along where people can help and support you with that you had no idea going into the whole process.
Yeah. Remember, I think it's Don Fila, or I think that's how you say his name. Anyway, he wrote a little book about network marketing and how you could write the whole thing out on a napkin or something like that. It's been a long time since I read the book, but in his book, he talked a little bit about a man who was a little bit special needs. He was a custodian somewhere in some building, a little slow. and he got introduced to a network marketing company, and Don doesn't mention what company it is, but inherently this guy really didn't have the tools, intellectual tools, to put a business together. So what did he do? Well, he just leaned on the guy that sponsored him, right? He started to abuse his upline, if you will, but he would find people. He was kind. He had these native abilities to, people were drawn to him because he was just such a nice fellow. And then he would use his upline to help him. They would help him. He did that consistently. He would use his upline. He would share his thoughts with people. People would be drawn to him, et cetera, et cetera. And he built quite a successful network marketing business simply because he used those techniques that worked for him and was consistent. He created a plan and worked for him. But sometimes our plans don't work, right, Judy?
Sometimes they don't. And when that happens, it's not the time to quit and say, oh, I tried that network marketing thing. It didn't work. How many times have you heard that, Bob?
Yeah. It's like I think we all got a message about the Legacy 2020 digital launch or whatever that was. Yeah, by the way, that kind of bothers me when we get like 5 hours of lead time for something that's coming up. That doesn't work for me. I was already completely booked out. I couldn't even get on it. We need a little bit more lead time. I think it's something we need to talk to Synergy about. But anyway, I was listening to Brian Holt, and Brian and I have been good friends for a very long time. Well, here's Brian talking about this remarkable new app. I've got it on my phone. It's really cool. But it made me think about all those years ago when Brian decided that he was going to make Synergy work in his life, in his world. And I sold Brian, he would buy sometimes like 600 or 700 DVDs from me because I'd put together these DVDs that you could, just use them, give them to people. They'd look at them. It was full of interviews and testimonials and whatnot. And he literally, in the trunk of his car, popped the lid up on the trunk of his car. And that box, he had a box in there full of those DVDs, and he went all over using them. Well, look how things have changed. That plan back then worked for him. That plan doesn't work today, right? We have to change from time to time. I look at the way things have changed over the years with Synergy. Some things work, some things don't work so good. That's just my experience. And it seems like the more complicated the plan, the more difficult it is to make it work.
That's so true. And just knowing that it's not working and there's another way to still get to that end result that you want. So a map has a lot of twists and turns, and at least here in Chicago, a lot of detours and road construction. And sometimes a 5-minute drive ends up to be about 30 minutes from my house to the grocery store. But that doesn't mean that I go home, because if I do, I won't have food. So you have to reorganize, you have to redesign, you need to find another route sometimes, but continue. And when we find something that works, we need to keep repeating it, because that's where the success is.
Yeah, and recognizing too that it may not work forever. Sometimes, I guess, temporary defeat isn't permanent failure. And I think that's important for us to remember. We'll give something to try. If it works, awesome. And then we move forward with it. If it doesn't work, that doesn't mean that we're a failure. It just means that that particular plan didn't work out. So let's regroup.
Right.
And consistently do that.
Yes. This picture on the screen here is the 17th and final Model T model of Henry Ford. So he went through 17 designs of that same car to just keep getting it better and better and better until he found actually another way to find another model that would even help him get to his goals.
It's pretty cool, but it's not a Mustang, right, David?
And it's yellow.
And it's yellow. I love it. When I married Bonnie, I had a 1939 Chevy pickup customized.
Wow.
1939.
It wasn't new, Bob.
It is definitely not. Thanks, Judy. But that was the coolest truck in the world. But yeah, you think about like Thomas Edison. Now, I don't know if it's just, I don't know, Thomas Edison with his 10,000 times that he tried to create that light bulb. I don't know that number is exactly correct. I've often wondered about that. But the point being that, you try something that doesn't work. Well, if the plan is good, if the end result has enough value to it, you just keep moving forward. Something doesn't work, you regroup. Something doesn't work, you regroup. That's what we do. And that kind of consistency, is just extremely important. But for our plan to work, if we want it to actually work, the plan's got to be, it's got to be sound. It's got to be solid. So you got to just keep moving forward. Quitters never win, and winners never quit, right?
Absolutely. And to create that plan, to get the clarity and the decisiveness, you really need to have specific characteristic as a leader to be able to move forward and to be able to pick yourself up. And one of the first things I think is unwavering courage. And unwavering courage, wow, what a strong thing to have. And I never thought it would take courage, right, to become a distributor. But as you go along on the journeys, there's a lot of things that step in your way that you have to overcome. Some of them is ourselves. Some of them is other people or other products. But we need to have the courage to step up and step out into the world to really have our plan come to fruition.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thought. I like it. I was thinking I was in I don't know how many of you are familiar with the state of New Mexico, but New Mexico is a beautiful state. They call it the land of enchantment. Southern New Mexico is pretty dry, hot, and deserty, etc. But the northern part of the state is just absolutely gorgeous. I spent some time there a few years back. I was in Cimarron, New Mexico, and then went up into Taos and over to Santa Fe that are just absolutely gorgeous. But I was in a shop trying something on, and there was on the wall in that shop, someone had written on the wall, "When you see a man on top of a mountain, you can bet he didn't fall there." I've never forgotten that. And when I was thinking about unwavering courage, that's that guy that he didn't fall on top of that mountain. He had to climb up there. He had to climb. He had to have the courage to do that. And it's so true in so many things in our lives. If you're going to get there, you can't fall there. You have to get up and get going. It takes courage, but it also takes enormous self-control. And in our business, the kind of things that we're doing, we have to factor in self-control. There are going to be days when everything goes so well. It's like, how many quality exposures did I have today? I had 9 quality exposures today, and, handed out brochures, et cetera, et cetera. There are going to be other days where that just doesn't happen, where it's much more difficult. But learning self-control, not getting angry or upset, but keeping our path straight, moving forward, holding onto the rod, and just keep moving forward, using self-control means the world. And things don't always go right. I remember I had an individual. We had a get together at the Canyons Athletic Club in Hamilton, Montana, and a guy showed up who I had known for many, many years. There was a lady that was a part of our group who I didn't know very well, but apparently she had invited him to come. Well, as soon as he got there, he's like, "Oh, Bob," so we hook up. Well, a few weeks later, he called me and he said, asked me if I would sign him up as a distributor. I'm like, "Sure, of course, that'd be great." I never gave it a second thought. Signed this guy up to be a distributor. What the heck? I find out this lady was terribly upset that I had stolen him from her, right? And I didn't know this. And I ran into her at a grocery store and she wouldn't even look at me. So I went over to talk to her. I'm like, what's the matter? And then she told me, I'm like, you know what? This is my bad, my mistake. I'll get this fixed for you. I'm so sorry. And I apologized to her and I took care of the whole thing, got everything taken care of. I didn't get mad. I understood exactly what happened once that was explained to me. But it takes self-control for me to not be offended that she was mad at me well, she was mad. She wasn't using self-control, but Bob was. So that was a good thing for that day. But it's an extremely important thing. So anyway, Judy.
Well, and really it brings on the next step, which is a keen sense of justice. So, so when you looked at the situation, Bob, you looked at the whole picture and saw what was fair, what was proper to do, and to be able to do that. And if you look at it short term, you lost a distributor, right? But you gained self-worth, and in the big scheme of things, one distributor really is not going to make or break your business.
It's true, and he was in bad health. In fact, he's passed away since then. But that having a sense of justice is extremely important in leadership. You've got to know when to do the things that you're doing. Also, with regard to decision making, again, as a leader, you've got to be definite in the decision making that you do. So know what it is. You always have the option of being quiet or of not talking. But if you're going to make a decision and you're going to vocalize that, you need to make sure that what you're about to say, what you're going to lay on the table, what you're going to tell your people is the right thing, hopefully, and be humble enough if it isn't the right thing to adjust accordingly. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes you just need to apologize.
Absolutely. And the same thing is true with the plans. Once you make a decision, you really have to outline those plans that you're going for and to be able to stick by them throughout the process and not let other people say, well, I really don't like that. Or that doesn't work for me. It is their business. They can do what they want, but your plans need to be definite and purposeful.
They do. And you can do that without being mean. Sometimes, in leadership, you'll have a boss who's, if you have a little question, you're not exactly sure about how something's going. I've seen a lot of men who are just plain mean to the people who work for them or with them. And we don't want to go there. It is just not worth it. And, as I was looking at this list of like doing more than you're paid for, I thought about when I owned a butcher shop. We ran cattle out in Montana, and I had a meat company and butcher shop. We ranched, we ran livestock. It was tough work. I mean, it was tough work. You try running livestock in the winter and running that kind of a business, when it's 40 below zero out in Montana, and it's hard work. But I had quite a few men who worked for me, and I was bound and determined every single day that I would never ask one of the men who worked for me to do anything that I wasn't willing to do myself. I would go the extra mile always within the business. For every job I've ever had, go the extra mile, people to do the same. And it's amazing. There's a difference between a sheep herder and a shepherd. A sheep herder, pushes the sheep gets the dogs and they move sheep or livestock, whatever. But a shepherd, those sheep can hear the sound of his voice and they will follow him. And that's what happens. You become a shepherd to your people when they hear your voice and they trust you because of your integrity and your hard work. Your people will follow you. There are men in my life that I would follow anywhere. I'd walk into a fire for certain men. Other men I wouldn't walk across the street for. but there's a difference. And when you do more than you're paid for in your work, and you teach your people the same thing and set that example, you're going to move forward with your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it might be just the way that you work with your customers and do little extra special things for your customers, or inform them of discounts for them. We're not obligated to do that, but they appreciate it so much when you do.
Well, they do. And part of that, Judy, and these are things that we've talked about for a long time, but part of that is knowing the people you're working with. When you know your people, you know what's going on in their lives, or their kids, or those kinds of things. You're aware of it. And so when certain things, you think about your people, and you're able to adjust accordingly and do things to help people. You have that understanding. I don't want to say sympathy per se, but you understand your people. And it goes a long way. A card in the mail. I mean, everybody likes to get something in the mail anymore. We don't send letters anymore. But little things that you can do with the people that you're working with can make all the difference in the world. Understand your people's situations and then act accordingly.
Yes, and when things aren't going right, a pleasing personality sometimes says more than anything, to not get upset back at people. I really believe that the weather you bring into the room, someone could bring a cloud into the room, and you can bring in the sun, and the clouds disappear. So having a pleasing personality really will make a difference in conflict, and with just having people know, like, and trust you.
I had a friend who was telling me one time that we were talking about a friend of ours, and he said, "Man, I think that guy was weaned on a pickle." I've never forgotten that expression. We don't want to be the guy that acts like he's been weaned on a pickle, right?
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, and it also takes a lot of sympathy and understanding. And I don't like to use the word sympathy. That's Napoleon Hill's word, because I think sympathy means that you feel sorry for people. And I think what he really meant to say was empathy, right? So empathy is being able to identify with the person, and then maybe be able to understand and help them make changes.
Yeah, and the measure of compassion fits right in with that as well. It just
Absolutely.
does.
Absolutely.
But yeah, leadership qualities, having a mastery of detail. In other words, really knowing, without micromanaging everything. You need to know the details of your plan. You just have to. And when you do, it's like all those years ago when I first came into Synergy, I was trying to comprehend the compensation plan. And I actually met with Lynn Ullman down at Synergy, and we went through 7 modules to try to explain the compensation plan. Well, Lynn Ullman, who is brilliant, was probably the only guy in the universe who could go through those 7 training modules and understand the details of the comp plan. Dan Hammer threw it all together in one video, and understanding the details of how things work, and then being able to articulate those details. That's huge.
Yes. And the last thing on Napoleon Hill's list is to assume full responsibility. And if it is your plan, then you are responsible for that plan, and not to blame others if it doesn't work. And when things goes wrong, trying to figure out a way to make it right.
Yeah. Well, Bonnie says excuses are for losers. When you're in charge, you're in charge. And if things go south on you, even if it is because one of your people made a mistake, you're still responsible. And you've got to assume that. It's just part of leadership.
That's so true. And, we're almost running out of time here. So let's just review Andrew Carnegie a little bit. And he was an amazing individual. There have been some things that I've written about him that aren't positive, but what I really think Andrew Carnegie was so insightful. And you know that he did not know anything about the steel industry before he got involved. He didn't know anything about running a library, right? um, but he had these qualities of imagination and faith and planning and action and really unyielding persistence and a burning desire to get through that.
Well, it's such a unique individual too, but he set such a good example in terms of leadership. And that, of course, that's what we're talking about today is leadership. You know, create those kinds of plans. Yeah, he didn't know, but he put together a group of people who did know, right? That mastermind group concept of you've got an idea, something that you want to do, you gather people around you, try to get the smartest guys you can around you, talk it out, work it through, and find things that in a harmonious way that you can do to move forward and make your business work. And he's just a tremendous example of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Success. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, as we wind down today, I just love Napoleon Hill's thoughts on really what we've just talked about, kind of into a little nutshell here. And one of which is that there really are no limitations to our minds. And if we say we can, and if we say we can't, we won't. It's so true.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I guess the same with this, the concept of both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. You come right back to desire and action, right? What are your thoughts? How are you thinking about things? Do you have that scarcity mindset or do you have an abundance mindset? And there's power in positive thinking. There just is. And what are we thinking about?
Yeah, I had a friend who, whenever I would see her, she would say, oh, something else happened. Everything bad happens to me. And she was right. Everything bad did happen to her. But one day, for some reason, she flipped it. And she said, things are getting better. And her whole demeanor changed. Her whole life changed. And she went from the negative thinking to really not completely positive, but more positive than she was. And it actually changed her outlook on life and things that happened in her life.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it interesting, that, one of my sons, let's see, four of my kids are really extremely positive and one not so much. and he's always the one who's not so much positive has always been that way. We used to call him Mr. Anxiety. We shouldn't have done that because at the time it seemed funny. It's not funny now. He's a grown man and he's doing great. And he has a wonderful family. But with this particular son, it's just, there was always something was wrong. Something wasn't, I don't know, but it hasn't done him any favors. Let's just put it that way through life. You just catch a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And so keep on the sunny side, right? I used to have a little sticker on that 39 Chevy pickup I was telling you about on the little glove box in that pickup. I had a little sticker that said, "Be like 2 fried eggs, keep your sunny side up." And that was my motto when I was younger. And it's carried me through some tough days.
Yes, actually served you well, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the last, success requires no explanations and failure permits no alibis.
There you have it.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Well, it's been a good webinar, and the information in Napoleon Hill in his book, it's awesome. But you have to wade through some things. Like we said at the beginning, there are pages and pages in this particular chapter about how to write your own resume, what kind of jobs to look for. I thought that was interesting, Judy, that we're not really looking for jobs in the railroad these days, or I just looking for a job with newspapers and things of that nature that don't apply today, but the basic principles do apply. And so it's fun to read. It's you forget about the Great Depression. Now we're in another recession now. Go figure. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bob. I hope that the people that are listening now and in the future get something out of Napoleon Hill's chapter on organized planning. And do we have any questions or comments before we say goodbye today?
Bob and Judy, thank you for your presentation. You brought up a couple times in your presentation a concept in business, and I wrote it a little bit differently than how you presented it. So here's my shot at it. Business success is learning how to effectively adapt to changing circumstances. And our synergy business is no different. The methods, and Bob, you talked about it, the methods of presentation that we used when we first joined Synergy Worldwide are completely different today in terms of our methods of presentation. And modern technology allows us to have what I would say more effective ways of making presentations than what we used to have.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you just have to do that. Just kind of go with what's working. And I miss getting together. I've always enjoyed having that one-on-one experience with people at eye-to-eye contact, and being able to chat with people, and I don't know, just see people's body language, and I enjoy that, and I've missed that. This Synergy event that's coming up on October 28th and 29th is really going to be, I think it's going to be great fun. It's been years since we've been able to do that. I don't know that I can get there though. If Bonnie can't, it's just going to depend on what this knee surgery does. How I can't leave her alone, and I don't want to, but I want to be there for that event too. So I'll have to wait and see what happens towards the end of next week. I'd have to leave her. It's about a 13-hour drive for me to get there. So I'd have to leave her next Thursday. I don't know whether she'll be, able to get around well enough or not. I guess we'll see. We'll wait and see.
Wow. Well, thank you, Bob. Anybody else?
Yes, it's Donald. Just another excellent presentation. And I love when we're able to do this. And it brings me back to the early presentations that we used to do, interaction and all that. In fact, I've got a suggestion. Coming up or coming out of COVID, there's a number of things, or there's one thing this week, it's called TWIV, this week in biology, and this week in microbiology, and TWIN, this week in neuroscience. And I think that maybe next year we can look at, I can talk down into categorizing or presentations in the form of this week in Synergy Worldwide Family, and kind of have that be the umbrella. Maybe we look at that, but it's something that I've been looking at for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for that input.
Thanks.
Yeah, Donald, great. Yeah, well, keep us in the loop on that. That'd be
Sure.
great.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Judy, love you. Thanks for everything.
Love you guys too, and hope to see you all soon.
Well, yeah, we'll see you again before you know it, right?
That's right.
There you go. Thanks,
Thank-
everybody. Have a great
Thanks
week.
again, guys. Just a quickie. Did the time go back yet?
No,
Okay,
after Halloween.
gotcha. I kind of forgot that.
Yeah, they changed it.
Sounds good. Okay, see you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.